Well, welcome to the Cinnabar. Now, we try to keep this channel pretty light, pretty fun most of the time, but occasionally we have to get kind of serious, and today's one of those days. This is maybe the most important episode that we've done, and maybe the most unpleasant for me, but it's one that really needs to be done. This is about a situation with a rifle that went through our shop on consignment just recently, and it came from a guy who's been really supportive of the channel. This guy's a very experienced collector, shooter, reloader, and he brought several guns to us, this being one of them. It's a beautiful 1894 Winchester, high condition, 3855, half octagon barrel, and it was bought by a friend of mine that's a very experienced collector as well, a shooter, done a lot of reloading, very astute when it comes to reloading. And the fellow that consigned it brought in what he had as far as brass, and there was loading dies, some bullets, and just a handful, about half dozen reloads that were clearly marked as reloads. And when the fellow that bought the gun saw those reloads, was very adamant that he doesn't ever shoot reloads that he doesn't know or hasn't done himself. And so I really didn't even give it a second thought until a couple of weeks ago I got a phone call saying that well, he had decided he was gonna shoot that gun, and since we just had a handful of reloads there and wanted to get the brass for him, he just decided to go ahead and shoot him. Well, this is the result. This beautiful 1894 is no more. Thank goodness the fellow was not injured in the mishap, just some slight burns on his left forearm. This was a mess, you know. I have no idea how far overloaded that charge was, but it was way overloaded. We know that Winchester proofed these barrels and shot them with loads far in excess of what they would see in the field, and they had to pass in order to be proof marked, and so this load was just way beyond what it takes for a load to fail. So let's take a little bit closer look, and we'll see just how fortunate this fellow was that he didn't get injured in this mishap. So here's what's left of this once beautiful 1894 Winchester. You can see what was left in his left hand to the fore end there. The magazine tube was just blown right off the bottom of the barrel. Of course, the barrel with the chamber area completely blown off of it. And if we look at the receiver, we can see it's split right down the middle on the bottom. And if you look at the top of it, the front part of the receiver is blown away. The right hand side just kind of split it out there. And here's what, just fortunately, the guy found part of the chamber area about 50 yards away. The rest of the chamber area, of course, was scattered to the four winds. So we can see that this would have set right in about here and was just blown away in this direction. Thank goodness the fellow's left arm wasn't just taken off, or his left hand. Just kind of miraculous that he wasn't hurt any worse than he was. Now, I remember in my youth I was just happy to have some ammo to shoot, and I shot some pretty rough ammo. I remember getting into some of Grandpa's old ammo and just being so excited to have something to shoot. No concept of any kind of dangers. Well, of course, when you're a teenager, you're going to live forever, and nothing ever bad is going to happen to you. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten much more cautious about the kind of ammo I shoot. And if you've watched this channel much, you've probably even seen me break down some factory-loaded ammo that I wasn't comfortable with shooting through a black powder era rifle. But this has taught me even a greater lesson than that. You know, if you've got any kind of ammo that you're not sure about, particularly these reloads, don't shoot them, and don't let them leave your possession. Break them down. You know, you can completely trust somebody that they're not going to shoot that ammo if you let it go, and they know it's just for components and all that, but you don't have any control of that. And in this situation, you know, that's what I expected, was that those reloads were going to be broke down. The fellow said he doesn't shoot reloaded ammo unless it's his own. But, you know, people take a chance sometimes, and this is a pretty good example of it. And it also reinforces to me to be extra cautious when you're loading ammo, when you're reloading. You know, the fellow that this came from has been reloading for decades with no accidents. Now, I don't know whether he's the one that loaded this or these are some reloads that he got somewhere else and just passed them along. But break them down. You don't want to be responsible for this kind of thing. I can guarantee you I've lost a lot of sleep over this whole situation. All right, so we know there's one round here that's just captured, the tube was crushed around it there, and we're going to leave that one in there. This is going to go on permanent display here in the shop. That's kind of a warning to people. But the shooter thought there was a couple more rounds in the tube here, so let's see if we can't get them out and break them down and see what we got here. Well, maybe the tube's bent enough that it's not going to let them go. There is one more loose round that wasn't in the tube when he fired it. I can see one more round in there, but oh, I see. There's kind of fire formed around the rim of that one there, so it's holding the other one that's in there. So looks like we're just going to have one that we can break down and see what's going to be in it. Now, whenever I'm using a kinetic bullet puller, I always do it outside just as an extra layer of safety. Well, apparently it was crimped really well. I don't think I've ever beat on one quite this much. That is a heavy, long bullet. Okay, let's go see what we've got in there. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. I'm real curious because the fellow that shot that rifle when it detonated broke down a couple of cartridges, and one of them appeared to be black powder and one of them looked like a mix of powder. So I'm really curious as to what this one is. Okay, so this looks to me like black powder. So I kind of wonder if maybe whoever loaded these was intending to load black powder and then somehow grabbed some mystery powder. If you're a reloader, you know what I'm talking about. You know, we dump some loads and then we have that little container that we just kind of dump other powders in, and maybe grabbed that by mistake in a couple of rounds. Now there's 30, 40, so we're in between 30 and 40, and that would make sense for black powder, although it would actually be a little bit light, but because this bullet is so long, might not have been able to get a full charge of what we consider black powder in a 38-55 case. There's about 33 there, so we're a little over 33, maybe not quite 34. There's 34, actually just right on 34. So let's go ahead and dump that powder out and see what the bullet weight was. So we had 34 grains of black powder, and let's go to 200 here, actually 204. Move this back down to 0. Okay, 200, say 230. So just a shade under 230. So we had a pretty heavy bullet and a fairly light charge of black powder. Now when the shooter broke down a couple of cartridges he had left over, one of them was just like that one we broke down. It was black powder, about the same charge. And I can't believe that a black powder charge could have detonated this gun the way it did. But this is a picture that he sent me on a text, so it's not super clear, of a charge that was in the other cartridge. And we can see that there's some different types of powder in here. It looks like a mix of powders. There's some disc-shaped powders in here. There's some little fine pellets over in this area, some fine granular powder here, and there's about 30 grains here. So I really think that somebody was loading some black powder rounds and mistakenly grabbed some powder that was maybe a mix of some reloads that had been dumped, loaded them just like you would a black powder charge, filling the case and maybe even compressing them a little. And when you've got, you know, who knows what kind of smokeless powders here, maybe just some of them are even pistol powders, that's just a recipe for disaster, and I'm sure that's what detonated this particular gun. And he burned this charge, and it burned like smokeless powder, so rather than a flash, it burned across. So pretty confident that we had a charge of some kind of smokeless powder or some combination that caused this gun to detonate the way that it did. Now I'd like to offer a big thank you to both the buyer and the seller of that rifle. You see, they split the cost of that rifle so that we might make this episode and keep it on permanent display here in the shop as a cautionary tale. They really wanted something positive to come of what's been a really awful experience for everybody involved. I think it's really commendable of them. Now, next episode, we're going to do something a little more fun, and it's going to involve this cool old 1866 carbine. So keep an eye out for next week's episode, and I promise it'll be a little more lighthearted and a whole lot more fun. Until then, happy trails from the Cinnabar.